My name is Kate Towne. I'm with Silman. We are structural engineers. And I started this Revit session because um, there are so much in Revit that you can spend days learning, and it's all worthwhile and valuable. But sometimes you just want the stuff that goes, faster. So we're going to cover, I got 20 minutes. We got 20 tips that we're going to do here. And I know that like 40% of you said that you are experts, and that is great. I am still willing to bet that I can show you something today that you haven't seen before. And even if I'm wrong about that, I guarantee you there is somebody in your office who needs some of these tips. So
Something you forgot, right?
yeah, or it's like I knew that was possible, but I just hadn't seen it in a while. So I've done this a version of this presentation several times now, and there's always been at least something new for everybody. So let's kick it off. All right, we're going to start with an oldie but a goodie in the category of where did it go? There are something like 34 reasons why something might not be visible in a view. And if you're talking about a detail, a section, or a call out, it might be this little parameter, hide at scales coarser than. I personally love this setting, especially when you have dependent views. If you have floor plans at a smaller scale and you don't want to show your sections on the larger scale. But if you set that value too small, they might disappear in a place where you're expecting them to be. So put that in your toolbox of Revit mysteries. Next up is another favorite for really long detailed titles. This is how to put a line return in your title on sheet parameter. Note that this is different from view title. That is a different, or view name. That's a different parameter entirely. No line returns there. But if you select the title on sheet in the properties palette, again, doesn't work in the drawing window, but in title on sheet, if you put your cursor in the title and use Control Enter, that'll give you a line return, and you can break your title whenever you want. No more using spaces to force it onto the second line. Quit doing that. Use the Control Enter for title on sheet. Sticking with the view category right now, if you've ever wondered where on earth a particular section or detail is cut, right click. This will be a theme throughout the presentation. When in doubt, right click. In the right click menu, you'll find referring views, and it will show you every place where that detail is cut. Now, if something's hidden by a filter or hidden by category, it won't be seen here. So it is possible that you will get referring view cannot be found. It's a little bit trickier. Sorry about that, but hopefully it shows up somewhere and you'll be able to go grab it.
On the
almost forgot.
previous tip, actually, we have a question as to whether
Yeah.
the Control plus Enter works in a schedule view.
Oh, guess what? It does. That Control Enter works in schedules as well. Yes, absolutely love it. And before I leave this one, don't neglect the open view at the bottom of this dialog. You don't have to go to it in the project browser. It can just go to it straight from this dialog. Now, the flip side of this, you've got a sheet view, or you have a view, and you're wondering, where is this on a sheet? Project browsers get really long, especially with depending on what discipline it is, there can be a lot to scroll through. So scroll less, right click more. If you right click on a view name, you'll be able to open the sheet that it's on. If that view is grayed out, it means it's not on a sheet yet. Oh, this is one of my super favorite hidden tips that I got from Brian Mackey. If you right click on the lock icon for a dimension, like on the lock, not just to the left, not just to the right, it has to be right on the lock, you get the option to show related objects. So if you've ever wondered what exactly was being referenced by that dimension, if I delete this wall, is that dimension going to go away or not? It'll tell you. Obviously, it'll show you at least two if you have for any dimension, but if you have a whole string, it'll run through them all. All right, let's keep moving. This is another one of my favorites. These are all my favorites, so please don't count how many times I say favorite. But select tag host, because even though if you move an object, the tag will go with it, which is the great thing about tags, but you can still move the tag all by itself. And sometimes they end up floating and you're like, where did this come from? I would like to make sure that it's object still has a tag. So grab the tag, select host, and it'll change your selection to the object being tagged. All right, okay, this one, I put it in here because it's super popular. You have to promise me, Scout's honor, you will not use this for evil, okay? Don't do it, and if you do it, don't tell them I told you. So sometimes we need to put in a 0-inch dimension, like you've got two things right next to each other. This shows up all the time in structure for rebar. Two things are overlaid and we need to dimension to 0. You can't just type in 0 inches because Revit is smarter. They are watching out for us and they're going to say, I'm not going to let you put in a different number in your dimension. But if you right click again, see, told you my right click theme. If you right click in the replace with text and go down to a Unicode control character, pick your favorite one from the list on the right. Once you put that in there, it acts as a text character, an invisible text character, and then you can put in a number after it. But again, please promise me that you're not going to do this to, override 5'11" into 6 feet, because that's like, people will hunt you down. They will figure that out and they will find you and it won't be good. But there are specific use cases when this is valuable. Just be careful.
I will say that was like 6 disclaimers.
It was, but it's necessary because the whole point of Revit is that it's real.
We're getting some conflict in the chat there, but that.
Oh, okay.
She's covered herself with disclaimers.
Yeah, just don't like I'd say. And this, I tell you, I'm structural, right? Structural, this comes up a lot. You get two things that are vertical, and you need to indicate that they're sideways. So we can discuss it later when when my presentation turn is over. All right, this is a little PSA to my architecture friends here on the call. There's a little checkbox in a wall property that is super important for your structural friends, and that is the structural checkbox. If you check this box, the wall will show up when the view discipline is set to structural. If you do not check the box, the wall will not show up in a structural view. Full stop, no way around it. That's how it is. It's hard-coded, built in. Most of the time it works great. That said, if you want me to know that there's an important wall here, please check the structural box. Might be nice if I can see where you think the core walls are, and even better, don't check these boxes on things like toilet partitions. I don't want to see those. Those aren't structural. If you use this box for good. Another one here for my structural friends. So we've talked about column footings. And usually when we talk about a column footing and somebody says, I need you to drop that footing 2 feet, you grab the footing, you change the footing elevation, and you end up with this, which is not exactly the desired condition. Columns don't float. The reverse situation, you need to move the footing up 2 feet. So you grab the footing, you move it up 2 feet. And it's like, no, just kidding. I'm going to put it back at the bottom of the column because I know footings go under columns. Well, how do you get around that? There are 2 ways. One is you could change the elevation of the column, change the bottom elevation of the column, and then the footing will follow it, whether it goes up or down. Or you can use a new feature. I think this is 2019 that this came out in, where you can now attach the column to the footing. Move the footing, column goes with it, vice versa. Very handy if you think things are going to change. This tip I kind of call the who knew tip. So we've seen these little arrows that you can flip the direction of a wall, flip which faces interior versus exterior, but how do you know which faces which? Turns out those little arrows always appear on the exterior side of the wall. So even if your wall is aligned at center line and you'd like to know, which side is the exterior, look for the arrows. So by looking at this, I can actually tell, I don't even need to see this wall's properties. I know that its justification is set to interior face because the walls are on the other side. All right, another public service announcement that I learned at a conference several years ago. If you are moving a grid, and you would like the columns and beams that are associated with that grid to move along with it, you must move it more than 7 inches. I do not know why 7 inches is the magic number, but 6 3/4 inches is bad, 7 inches is good. Let's say you needed to move it an inch to the left. What I do is I move it a foot to the left and 11 inches back to the right. And that way everything goes with it. We have had way too many abandoned beams and columns before we discovered this tip. I took it back to the office and everybody was just thrilled that we no longer have to chase down orphaned objects. Let's talk about revisions real quick. So revision schedules are great, and there's more coming in 2022, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But sometimes my project manager will come to me and say, I need you to hide all the revisions, all the clouds for this revision. I don't want to see it on the sheets. I don't want to see it on the title block. And what are your options? Like, you could delete the revision and print and undo real fast, but that feels very dangerous. You could use Bluebeam to try to edit the title block, paste over the thing in the title block, but that's also then you're post-production, and that's not great either. So what you can do instead is to kind of blank out all the revision properties. So set the numbering to none to blank that out, blank out the date, blank out the description, uncheck the checkbox, and then if you need to, set the cloud and tag to none, so they're all gone. And if you need to, you can use the issued to and issued by fields as kind of placeholders. So I have the date in there as TBD and the description is future. It's something that's happening later. We know it will be issued, but it's not ready yet. And now all your clouds are still in the project. All your tags are still in the project. It's still in the proper place in the schedule. You just don't see it on the title block. Once we figured that out, it made our lives a lot easier because we don't have to hack the model itself or the resulting PDFs. Back to views here for a second and the project browser. So if you need to move a sheet from a view from one sheet to the other, before I learned this tip, I would right-click on the view, remove from sheet, go find it in the project browser, drag it back onto the sheet, and it takes a while. Instead, just look for it in the project browser under the sheet, grab it, and drop it onto the new sheet title. Revit will open up the new sheet and let you place the view exactly where you want it. You might have to reset the viewport type because it will go back to the default one that Revit uses, but it's still way faster than actually deleting and re-adding them to the sheets.
Question on the previous
tip.
Yep. What if you have a new type of title block that doesn't have any revision information on it?
A new type of title block with no revision information, like no schedule?
Right.
Probably. Yeah, I think the only way around that is to, I see what you're saying, to switch them out. That could work if you wanted to blank out all your revisions.
Right,
but
that's true.
Yeah, usually what happens is we've issued revision number 80 and 81. We're ready to issue 81, but we have some things that we know we're going to be part of issue 82. They're just not ready yet. So we need to see all the previous things.
And you would still need to go in there and manipulate the clouding and tagging stuff to be.
Well, at least you can at least you can set those to none. So those at least will, that's right. One global change. But then you'd have to remember which title blocks you had. And I suppose there's a schedule or a script that you could probably use to flip them back and forth.
But depending on Explorer, if you have that, that would be a wonderful reason to use that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
depending on your circumstances.
That would be tough.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Moving right along here. All right. Another relatively new feature, which is dealing with linked models. A lot of times we like to unload our links so that they don't slow our models down. But so this is on me. I got in trouble when I first started using Revit because I kept unloading things to make it faster. And my colleagues were like, what are you doing? I was using that because every time you sync to Central, it would unload it for everybody. But I think again, back in 2019, they started this unload for me. So it will unload on your local copy and somebody else, if they're working on the model at the same time, can still have the model loaded. So the best of both worlds for linked models. All right. Another one of the tips that I actually got from Dana at a Revit DC meeting several years back. You ever open up a model and you want to know who on earth did that? Where did that come from? What are they doing? Now, maybe you want to know why they did it because it's really cool and you need to find out how they did it so they could show you too. But unfortunately, most of the time it's more like, let's find out who needs new training. So if you end up in either of those situations, turn on your work sharing display, pick your favorite category. It doesn't matter whether you choose checkout status, owners, whatever, doesn't matter. But as soon as you have something color coded, you can then hover over it and it will show you who made it, who owns it now, who updated it last. So all of these are mine, I think, because at the time I had been the last one to create this central file. But there might be somebody else's name in some of yours. All right, so for our last few tips here, I almost had this presentation ready and then they launched Revit 2022 last week. And so I had to go through and pick some of my new favorites, because again, I have all the favorites. And it was surprisingly difficult to narrow it down to just 4 or 5 here. But I'm going to tell you, there are enough here that as a consultant, I have to use whatever model, whatever Revit version you are using. And I'm going to be like campaigning for upgrades, before September, please, because there's some good stuff in here. All right, first up, new feature in Revit 2022, you can filter schedule by family or by type. Oh, finally, I keep forgetting that you can't do this and going to look for it. And now I won't have to forget again. Number 17, tags. We mentioned some tag things before, but you can now have multi-leader tags. So if you, like the wall tag down there on the screen, it's tagging all 3 walls. 1 tag, 3 liters. It knows that all the walls are different. And one thing on the left of the screen that is not getting quite as much love, but I know is really exciting for those of us who've been trying to do this for a while, you can now rotate tags. So horizontal and vertical are no longer your only options. I've had like rebar tags that want to be at 45 degrees and really frustrated engineers. So I'm really looking forward to this. All right, and I can hear you. I'm predicting that somewhere in the chat, somebody's going to say, what if you tag a wall with like one of those is wall 1 and the other 2 are wall 2, then what? Well, it's going to show you varies, and even that is improved because now there's no more blanks. If you have multiple values, either in a selection, in a schedule, in a tag, you will now get the technique or the text that says varies. And even better, you can edit that yourself. Per project only, but you can choose your own varies text. This has been something that's been like just, it might be almost dangerous to have these blanks. Is blank blank or is blank multiple values? Take your pick. Almost any of these it feels like are worth upgrading on their own. So, but we're not done yet. We're not even close to done because we now have PDF export. And I will say I've learned that this is no longer in the print dialog. This is an export, similar to things like DWF or IFC. And you might say, what's the big deal? I'm printing to PDF all the time as it is. Well, sure you are, but you can now name your PDFs based on parameters in your project. And then my favorite, again, favorites, all the favorites. See there on the right, use sheet size. We have an extensive typical detail library that uses about 4 or 5 different title blocks. And now I'm looking forward to the ability to export PDFs of all those details, and they will choose the sheet size based on the title block name. I haven't checked to see if they'll use this orientation, but I bet it will, because they covered all the boxes. So when you get a chance, look into this PDF export. All right, one more. Again, super exciting. I'm seeing some nods already. Phase parameters in filters. How many times have you tried, if you're working with existing buildings, say, I want to filter all the elements that were created in this phase? Nope, Revit's like, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. Why would I want to do that? So now you can. Select by phase created, select by phase demolished, add your favorite color filters. Just go crazy with it. Really looking forward to this. And we're almost done, but I couldn't I couldn't stop with just 5. So I only have 20 minutes for 20 tips, but I had to put this in here that we can now directly link in Rhino files into our Revit. Let's combine that with the Rhino inside. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see where that goes. We can do tapered walls. So if you have a battered retaining wall, you can taper that now. For my structural people, hide non-core wall layers. Show me only the structural core. Yes, please. We talked about revisions. You can now have your own custom sequences. We had levels added in 3D views a while ago. Now we get grids. And there's still like 25 more that I didn't get to cover. So that's my plug. On behalf of your consultants, check out Revit 2022.